How to be a good manager, how to be a good parent also, you can learn from this. Hello and welcome back. இன்னைக்கு பேச போற டாபிக் வந்து it will be very helpful. நீங்க வந்து ஒரு மேனேஜரா இருக்கீங்கன்னா how to be a good manager, how to be a good parent also, you can learn from this. All right, and what I'm talking about today is important lessons learned from my first manager. So அவரோட பேர் வந்து I'm taking his name is Rajagopal. He's from Trichy. I hope you're seeing this, Rajagopal, but I still remember all of this, and that's the reason why I thought some of the important lessons what I learned. The first and foremost thing is I was in a role which is like a marketing executive meaning you have to be on the road. Your role is a sales job. My role is a sales job, which means I have to be on the field doing house calls, going from one house to another house to convince students to come and do computer education. நம்ம வேலை வந்து வெளியில போய் ஒவ்வொருத்தவங்க வீட்லயா வெயில்ல அலைஞ்சு அப்படியே வேர்வை ஊத்தி that was my job. அதுதான் என்னோட வேலை. ஸோ நான் வந்து என்ன பண்ணுவேன்னா ஜென்ரலா போய் ஒரு ஏசி ரூம்ல உட்காந்துக்குவேன். இந்த சென்ஸ் ஆஃபீஸ்க்கு போனோம்னா போய் அப்படியே ஏசியில் அது கம்ப்யூட்டர் சென்டர்னால ஏசி இருக்கும், ஏசியில் உட்காந்தோன்னா அப்படியே குளிரா இருக்கும் கொஞ்சம். That's how I would do. உடனே அவர் கரெக்டா வருவார். வந்துட்டு அவர் சொல்லுவார், your job is not to sit in the AC room. Your job is to go be on the field. So the most important thing is, as a manager, setting the parameters right, letting your team know what is expected out of them, all right, and setting a guideline, stating that this is your role and this is what you got to be doing. Because many a times, as managers, we fail to tell or let them know what is expected out of them. The same thing goes on with parenting as well. As kids, what we do is we do not set the expectations right, and when the kids do something which is, like for example, in the example what I said, I'm just coming and sitting in the AC room instead of making door-to-door calls, what we do is we start yelling at the kids. And again, the behavior in terms of how we explain to the kids and how do we explain to as a manager, how are you explaining to your colleagues, people who are reporting to you? There is no need for yelling and shouting or screaming on top of your lungs. You can have a very good sit-down, normal conversation and tell them that this is what is expected of you. So expectation setting is the first and most important thing. The other thing which was so good about him is, again, one of the tips what I learned from my manager and which I do it even till date. As a manager, in my very first job, I had to report at like 9 o'clock in the morning. When I get there at work, he would be standing right in front of the office, even before anybody who came in, saying that, hey, welcome, your day is going to be great. So he used to stand right there in front of the office and he'd look at the watch in case if I'm late. He'll look at the watch and he'll say, hey, I thought it was supposed to be at 9 o'clock. That particular habit which I picked up, even till date, when I am in Trichy or in any of my facilities, I make sure that I'm ahead of time, leading by example. That is something so important. This is something which is very, very common what I see is when we are taking kids somewhere for an event, the kids want to get there on time, but we are late ready, we are late to the event taking our kids, but what we are doing is we are not leading by example. For the kids, they are learning from the parents. நம்மளும் லேட்டா போனா பரவாயில்லை அப்படின்னு சொல்லி அவங்க பசங்களுக்கு வந்து சீக்கிரமா போகணும், but we as parents are not getting ready quickly and being there on time. So something very, very important to think about, how do you lead by example as a parent, as a manager. The third area which I was talking about is asking for reports. As a manager, he had always asked me consistently week on week without fail, Sid, where's your report? And what it does was, it was accountability. As a manager, are you setting your team with accountability week on week without fail? After that, he stopped asking. It was my job to go and show up. You are coaching and training your teams to let them know that you are accountable for what you do. The same thing goes on with kids as well in parenting. Initially, you ask your kids about, hey, have you completed your homework? Or have you done your homework for this particular week? But as kids get independent, right, and they have learned the art of being accountable, then they will come and tell you, hey, dad, mom, I've finished my work and I'm ready to go out and play. A lot of times it happens, right? So we are helping them become independent and accountable. So that's the third tip as a good manager, something what you want to think about. The fourth point which I want to talk about is being nice and objective. I did speak about this. When you are having a conversation with your team, with your team members, there is no need. In fact, I've done that in my part of my life as well, where you're having a conversation, suddenly you become the conversation escalates na kovamayrum. There is like a lot of emotions, mixed emotions, this, that, and everything happening within the conversation. But most importantly, what we have to realize as managers and parents is, how do we have very pleasant conversation and yet be very objective? Pleasant and nice conversation being very, very objective, as opposed to being all over the place, showing frustration and anger. That's the fourth point which I wanted to talk about. And most importantly, as a manager, this is what I've realized, what I learned from my first manager. Being a friend and yet being very objective about the work which needs to be get accomplished. He'll be a great friend. So meaning he's my best friend, he's my best buddy, he's always around me, helping me in things what needs to get accomplished. Personally, if I need some help, he's always there to help me and help me think through and all of that. But as far as work is concerned, he is very, very objective about the work which needs to be accomplished. So how can you be a great friend to your reportees? As a manager, can you be a compassionate friend, a person who has a lot of empathy? That is something which I learned from my first manager, right? Showing empathy for the team, being there for them, at the same time being objective about work. What happens is many a times, managers, the moment they become friendly, or a friend ஆயிட்டோன்னா வேலையை மறந்துடுவாங்க. You don't need to think about work. In the sense, like, that is where actually the rifts start, the cracks develop between relationships. Because your relationship is a professional relationship. You've got into a friendly relationship, but you are not able to differentiate between what is a friend and what is the work which needs to be accomplished. So that is something, a very fine line. You got to learn about that, and that is something which I learned from my manager. And last and most important thing is, when you talk about leading by example, he's one of the managers where I've seen my work used to be like till 11, 12 in the night and going and tying ஊர்ல போய் பேனர் எல்லாம் கட்டணும் இதுக்காக various different events. He always used to be there, coming with me. He's the owner of the place and things like that, but still, as a business owner and as a CEO of the firm, he used to be there for tying banners and helping the team. So be there around your team to help your team. So these are my top lessons which I learned from my very first manager. Hope these are helpful for you and there are some significant takeaways for you. All right, thank you.